Hey guys, welcome back to Critical Flick. Today I'm reviewing the newest sci-fi adventure by the creator of Fifth Element, Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets. So Valerian follows the story of two main characters, Valerian and Laureline, who are played by Dane, DeHaan and Cara, Delevingne. The story basically follows the two main characters as they're set out on this mission by this, galactic force that they work for, and they're sent to this place called Alpha, which is this huge space center that is a conglomerate of all the different races and aliens and humans and everything all together in this huge space station that's basically its own planet. So they're going there because there's something going on at the core of this huge space station, and the general, who's the leader of the force, thinks that it's a huge danger and they need to go in there and need to stop it because it could wipe out the entire space station. So basically it's just, the whole movie is supposed to be around that mission, but there are a lot of little side stories that shoot off of that, and so basically at its core that's all it really is about. There's also this race that's slowly disappearing, and that's integrated into the main story, but at its bare essentials they're just trying to get to the center and find out what's going on. That's pretty much it. As for the story itself, it is slightly convoluted, and like I've heard other people say, it really branches off from the main story. You have that main story arc where they're trying to get to the center of this Alpha space station, but then you have a lot of weird little side stories that are thrown in with little tertiary characters that don't, at the end of the day, they don't seem important. They're in there to move the story forward, but they're really not that interesting. The story itself is slightly interesting, though, because you do have this race that's being wiped out. There's a lot of, lore and almost mysticism that's going on in the movie, and that is kind of interesting. I did enjoy that. It's very high fantasy. I am a fan of high fantasy. I mean, I love Star Wars, I like Star Trek, I liked Fifth Element. I like a lot of these movies. We've had some bad ones recently, like Jupiter Ascending's really bad movie, and Ender's Game, I didn't enjoy that. There's been a lot of these really big, budget sci-fi movies that have flopped recently, and I was really skeptical going into this one, especially from the first couple trailers. It felt like Jupiter Ascending to me. The movie does do a good job of fitting into that fantasy sci-fi genre, though. You do really get immersed in this world. They do a lot of world building. There's a lot of creatures, a lot of really cool visuals going on with different races and machines and devices, so that was pretty cool. The visuals themselves, the CGI, the green screen, all the computer effects did look really good. They were top-notch. I would have to say they are some of the best in the fantasy genre. You have other movies that do a really good job of more realistic things, like Dawn of the Planet of the Apes and War for the Planet of the Apes are incredible, but that is something that already exists in the world. So I find it a little interesting when I see fantasy movies where it's pretty much created from scratch and they're putting you in this completely computer-generated world. And that can be really hard to do. To have a movie where you have a couple real human actors that are pretty much playing off green screen the whole entire movie. And that doesn't work well in a lot of movies, and it seems to be a lot easier to place a CG character or object into an already existing world. It just fits a little bit better. But like I said, the CG was breathtaking. It looked fantastic. If you want to see a movie that looks really good, Valerian is a good movie to check out. It looks really great. There's a lot of cool creatures, a lot of cool environments, and you get a lot of immersion into this world. You are invested in the fact that it is realistic. It feels tangible. It doesn't really feel like you're watching a green screen the whole time. Sometimes it can be like that. There are moments where it does look a little sketchy, but for the most part, it looks really good, and you don't feel like it's just a bunch of people walking around a green screen studio. The part where the movie completely falls apart for me is the acting and the dialogue. It's really stiff. The acting is, by both characters, is really just not that good. I mean, we saw Cara Delevingne in Suicide Squad, and she got a lot of hate for that, and I thought she was okay in Paper Towns, but she wasn't fantastic, and this is another very mediocre to poor performance from her, and I was hoping for more. I thought maybe this would be a bounce back because she got so much criticism from Suicide Squad. Because, in my opinion, she was the worst thing about that movie. The movie had a lot of problems, but that character and the way it was done was probably the worst thing about that. Now, Dane DeHaan, he's been pretty good in movies. I have Chronicle back there. I really like Chronicle. I think he was really good in Chronicle. But then again, he's been really bad too. In my opinion, he was one of the worst villain performances as well in this one Spider-Man movie when he plays Green Goblin. So they both played really bad villains in superhero movies. So, yeah, it just didn't work out that well in this movie either. They felt really stiff. The dialogue felt very just bland. It was just given out. And I wasn't convinced of either one of their characters. Like I've heard, the chemistry is really bad. It's not there. The two characters don't feel like they should be together. they're just there, and they force in these really weird, awkward, like romantic moments, especially with Dane DeHaan. The things he says just sound kind of dumb. And that's another thing about the movie, is it has really weird tone shifts. So it tries its hand at comedy, and it's not good. The comedy doesn't work. And it tries to be pretty serious, and at times that's okay. And then it tries to get really emotional, and it just feels out of left field. You have a moment that's almost, I don't want to say comedic, but not as serious, and then it'll just go to these really serious moments. There's a couple examples of this in the movie. Rihanna's character is actually in it a lot more than I thought she was going to be in it, which isn't necessarily a good thing. But there's a weird, serious moment with her and the two characters, and it didn't feel right. It felt very out of place in the movie. And then at the end of the movie, there is a moment between Laureline and Valerian that just felt out of left field. They had these very random moments where it would get super serious, teary-eyed, like emotional stuff, and it just didn't mesh with everything else going on in the scene. It's okay to do that in movies, but you have to have it build up to that. It just felt like we're talking, everything's fine, and all of a sudden we're crying and having a really heart-to-heart moment out of nowhere. Also, it tries to have a big reveal, I guess, at the end. I mean, I felt like they were trying to have a big reveal, but you pretty much figure out from the beginning of the movie, when you're introduced to a certain character, that that person is not who they appear to be. And I wasn't for a minute not thinking that. I don't know if you were supposed to know that immediately, but they felt like, oh, they're a bad person or whatever. But I mean, you could have just picked that up immediately. The minute they're on screen, their presence and the way they speak, you know that that's what it's going to be. And I don't know why they tried to make that kind of like a big reveal at the end. Like no one knew that. Another thing, I don't know if this is what happened with this movie, but I have noticed that some movies that seem to be clearly targeting more of a global audience and not domestic box office, the writing is a little more simplistic. It seems to reach a broader audience. The jokes don't land as well, I don't think, with audiences in the United States. Maybe they land better with audiences abroad. And I could tell this movie wasn't necessarily made specifically for the United States, like a lot of movies are. You can tell they're topical with the United States and our culture. And this movie, it doesn't cater to anyone specifically, and maybe it might do better abroad. I know it's a French movie. I know the comic is French. I actually worked for a comic book company at one point, and I'm kind of familiar with Valerian. I've seen it. I've never really read any, but maybe this was better suited just being a foreign film. I'm not sure, but at the end of the day, it just didn't work for me, and it seems like it didn't work for a lot of people. So, at the end of the day, if I were going to rate this movie, I would probably give it a 6 out of 10. And most of that 6 is from the visuals. It is a very beautiful movie, and you really do feel immersed in the movie. And actually, I liked it better when the main leads weren't on screen. When there weren't any human beings on screen, this probably should have just been a completely CGI movie, because they felt so out of place. They felt so stiff, and the acting was poor. The dialogue was, in my opinion, really bad. Actually, I think the animated characters had better dialogue than the main two leads, honestly. Alright guys, well thanks for checking this out. If you saw it, let me know what you think. I haven't really talked to anyone that's seen the movie, and I've been kind of avoiding watching a lot of YouTube reviews. So, let me know what you think, and did you like it, and are you thinking maybe they're going to make more? I mean, I think it's probably not going to. It looks like it's going to bomb. Last time I saw was $16 million for the whole weekend here, and that's bad when it cost $180 million to make this movie. But anyway, thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and yeah, see ya.